Here, pushed to the brink. That's how our senior medical staff are describing working conditions at Gisborne Hospital. They say the number of vacant jobs is leaving them exhausted and operating in a constant state of crisis. They are due to strike tomorrow as officials admit staffing levels at regional hospitals are challenging. Henry McMullen met some who are struggling on the front line.
No, it's already been sent.
It's a phone always on.
I have 2 phone calls come through while I'm finishing the current one.
Finding time for just a 5-minute break can be a tough ask for these Gisborne hospital workers, meeting us off-site to describe how they're stretched to the brink by staffing shortages.
And we are still at risk of having to shut down at least one of our teams for multiple weeks over this winter.
We've come close in the last few months to not having doctors to staff our service. That would mean that any woman coming to the hospital who needed an obstetrician or gynecologist acutely would not be able to have one.
Continuous work for 77.5 hours. I was on call for 72 of it and on site for about 43.
Wow.
Weekend.
They've been struggling for years and are speaking out now as they say patients' lives are at risk.
Unfortunately, we've had patients die on waiting lists for procedures that they need. We've had people who come in for care and are delayed getting transferred and have bad outcomes as well.
Always concerns over harm that can occur on wait lists, and so that's a real focus of ours, again, why we're putting in these short-term solutions, to bring in these short-term locums to support them so that we can keep the hospitals safe.
Why are we looking for short-term solutions? That's the thing I don't quite understand. I mean, this is the $50 million going to private hospitals and that kind of stuff, or private providers. Why don't we start looking for long-term? So when we get those short-term solutions and then we have another problem in 2 years from now, then what? Another short-term solution? Why aren't we looking at long-term solutions here?
Well, I think that's a really good point. Like, we do need short-term solutions to buy us time to get to the long-term solutions. But yeah, when you're in a constant panic state, when all of your hospitals and all of your senior doctors are constantly in an emergency setting, in a panic state, in a war footing, how can you plan? Like, oh, we just want to pull you off the line to come up with a strategic plan of how we're going to solve this. I can't, because me being away from my post, because of how you've structured this, because of what you've done to the health system. If I'm away helping you solve this problem, someone will die.
Yeah. And like, almost most importantly, you should never wear that jacket standing in front of that background. Someone needs to tell the man.
I will put out that he is wearing a pin from that New Zealand artist Pepper Raccoon that I really like. I did know you can't see it in that shot. It's just out of shot, but I had that same badge.
Oh, very good. We love you more now, Chewie. Rotang says this, and I'll tell you something about the accents. Every doctor has an accent. I noticed that too. And then I read an article, and what it said in the article, it might be on one user's site, is that these doctors are escaping Trump. That's why we have quite a high number of American doctors at the moment. And I don't know whether that means, because this article seems to be saying that they've been under pressure for years. And if that's the case, maybe they left in Trump V1. But that was an article. That was because I noticed that as well. And one of them was an emergency doctor, and friend of the show, Gary. He's an emergency doctor, and he's American, and he's based in Northland. But apparently, some of these guys that they're interviewing are, and it actually kind of says quite a lot. If that's the case, and I'm just reporting what I read, if that's the case, that this system is broken as it is, they are still going to stay here and fight for this rather than go home to the American system. That kind of says a lot about the American system. Right, we'll keep going.
If we can keep the surgical list going.
While there's been some recent recruitment, local doctors said last year almost half the hospital roles were vacant, a figure Te Whatu Ora disputes, with locums being relied on to fill gaps.
Really high rates to those people to come for a short period of time. Which we all find frustrating, because if we could pay permanent people that money to stay here and work here.
We've got a large international recruitment program. We were looking to bring doctors in. But when you do recruit somebody from overseas...
Can I just say something that's really unrelated and unimportant? I fucking hate cutaways in the news. I fucking hate them. They're so revolting. I remember working for a radio station once at a music festival, and they interviewed us, and they want us to go, bah! And I went, nah, no, you guys, and I let the other host, if they wanted it, they could. And I was like, no, sorry, I'm not doing cutaways. It's not fucking Family Guy.
It does take many months before they do turn up on sites.
Workers want a clear and sustainable staffing plan to attract and retain good recruits. Something they've been calling for in a series of letters to officials. They say the response has not been good enough.
Losing even one more colleague is going to be disastrous for a service.
Wonder if they lived in Auckland or Wellington, would they have survived that, or would that have happened? And you're not supposed to have that postcode lottery here, but we do.
Dedicated to caring for others.
That's pretty terrifying. A postcode lottery. That's a scary thought.
Now preparing to strike for a little care of their own. Henry McMullen, One News.
There you go, Chewie. So more doctors on strike. We are aware that this is a systemic problem for years. So obviously you can't blame every issue on this current government, but talking to Debbie and Ngāwari tomorrow night, they were pointing out a lot of the cancellations that this government has made has certainly helped, contributed to, if not are completely responsible for more patients needing to go to the emergency room, which means more possibility of patients in corridors. So I think most of the things we're seeing with this government, health included, is that yes, there are several areas where there are systemic problems for decades, or certainly for governments, plural, but these guys have poured jet fuel on a lot of those problems, making them exponentially bigger, Chewie.